Tere, tere tulemast, hello, and welcome. My name is Dina Balawaya, and I will be the MC for tonight's meeting. I am a director of Estonian House in Toronto Limited, the entity that is the sole shareholder of International Estonian Centre Inc. and the sole voting member of Estonian Arts Centre. This is our 20th community engagement session for KESKUS, and we thank all of you for your continued engagement, curiosity, participation, and support in this exciting adventure. Tonight's session is fully virtual with the exception of the parents of the students currently at Toronto Eesti Kool, who are participating together in a watch party while their children attend classes. Tere teile! Almost a year has passed since our last engagement session. Since then, much has evolved on the KESKUS site. Tonight, we'll hear more about that from our development manager. As we go along, be sure to take note of any questions you may have. Towards the end of the presentation, you will be invited to type your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we will do our best to answer as many of your questions as we can tonight. If you have questions at any other time, feel free to email us at uuskodu@estoniancentre.ca. But before we kick off, I'd like to take a minute to remind us of our astonishing, ambitious project that KESKUS is and will continue to be. It is catapulting our small country, our small Estonia, into the spotlight, strengthening the global connections we have with one another all around the world. The map of Estonia will open up in the heart of North America's fourth largest city. We should all be so very proud of what we are accomplishing. And now I will turn it over to David Golm to give us updates on the construction of KESKUS. David?
Thanks, Tina. Good evening. As many of you know, my name is David Kalm. I have the honor of being the development manager for the KESKUS project. It's hard to believe that it has been a year since our last update. What a year it has been. An exciting year with many accomplishments and of course a few setbacks as well. So much has happened that it might be best to take everybody for a quick virtual tour. Let's start with the current picture of the site. Wow, what beauty. There has been a tremendous amount of work invested in the site to date. It's hard to see beyond the construction fence, but I can assure you there is more than meets the eye. There's a rule of thumb in the construction industry that says once a project gets back up to grade, you are more than halfway finished. Let's go for a tour to dig into the accomplishments to this point and then discuss the steps that follow. We all remember where we started from a construction point of view, a city parking lot. As such, the site clearing and building demo went quickly. This is when the front and rear non-heritage additions were removed from the house. The deep foundations were next. They had a rough start. Traditionally, geotechnical design is based on limited site-collected soil information. As such, the standard practice is to drill a single caisson initially and then load test it. In our case, it failed, resulting in a redesign of the deep foundations. Not an uncommon occurrence, but unfortunate. It resulted in delay and expense. On top of it all, it's all buried underground. Underpinning the house. Because the new building is much deeper in the ground than the old building, its foundations must be lowered to the new foundation depth, or the old building will eventually slide down into the new. Underpinning is a muddy manual process. The picture on the left is the view from the outside. Outside is the preferred approach to underpinning, as it can be done largely by machine. Also in the picture, you can see that the house brick has been stripped of paint using a chemical process. Where space is limited, the digging is done by hand. The middle photo is the view down the stairwell into the basement excavation along the north wall of the house. In the right picture, we see the first lift of the excavation on the west wall being done by hand. Note the man in the trench. All in all, we lowered the foundation 6 meters this way, and it went excellently. Hats off to those who do truly hard work. This is excavating and shoring. I think the picture on the left says it all. Lots of mud and clay. That's me kicking the pump. Not. We rented the equipment with operators and did the excavation ourselves. It paid off financially. The shoring was done on a fixed contract and also went well. Here we go. Finally, new construction. The photo on the left shows the mechanical site services installed from the street to the location of the future basement. The manholes provide access to those services. On the right are the grade beams that interconnect the tops of the caissons distributed across the north side of the TTC tunnels. Together, they form the north buttress or the base of the bridge we are building over the tunnels. More major infrastructure built just to be buried, unfortunately. A tricky layout forced us to backfill the area by crane, which is a bit slow. In this photo, you can see the cells between the beams backfilled, vapor barrier installed, rebar in place, and ready to be poured with the basement floor slab. Here we go up and away. The photo on the left captures some of the vertical work performed following the pouring of the basement floor slab. The exterior structure walls are underway here. The black material on the back of the form is waterproofing. In front of that is the reinforcement steel waiting for concrete. Angular steel shoring rakers can be also seen in the photo. With the completion of the basement walls, these items have since been removed as they are no longer needed. The walls are not formed and poured. The new practice is to spray the concrete into an open form. Less form work means it is faster, more cost-effective, and with better quality control. You can see the finished product in the photo to the right. The perimeter walls were all done using this process. To the right in this photo, you can see the forms yet to be removed from pouring the ground floor slab above. Meanwhile, in a temperature-controlled enclosure, phase 1 of the tunnel remediation work and waterproofing were completed. The tunnels are in good shape for being over 50 years old. Fairly limited areas of concrete surface needed to be chipped away for replacement. The work went smoothly and was on budget. On the contrary, the TTC administration of the work was very slow and resulted in much delay. In reaction to that, we changed the sequence of construction to remove phase 2 of the TTC work from the critical path on the construction schedule. With work streams now in parallel, we could continue the work going south across the subway tunnels and get back to the TTC work when convenient. Okay, pour 4. I have to control my inner construction geek here. The left photo shows the hand-laid installation of the reinforcement steel cage that will support one of the main beams crossing the subway. At the beam's core is an array of steel cables. These cables are being tensioned hydraulically in stages to control the sag in the beam once under load. The middle photograph is the reinforcement steel laid into the form for the structural suspended slab that is now the platform of the bridge spanning the tunnels. Geek alert. Check out the density of the reinforcement steel in the transfer slab. That is what gives us the strength to convert to standard structural spacing in the steel structure above. All the loads from above are transferred through the slab and beams into the foundations on either side of the tunnels. Cool as well is that the slab and the beams are poured monolithically, or all at the same time. Quite a trick, but easily handled by the forming contractor. The photo on the top right shows an overhead shot of the area of the pour. Not overly large, but chest deep through the beams and full of rebar. 37 trucks of cement were required to complete the pour. Meanwhile, elsewhere in KESKUS, these photos show the mechanical electrical progress we are making in the new basement. At the same time, the structural concrete in the basement of the house was sprayed in place. Then, most recently, the basement floor slab was poured along with the connection between the two basements. The change of use on the main floor of the house required that the existing floor structure be reinforced to handle a higher loading. This was achieved with a small amount of structural steel being added to the existing wood structure of the main floor of the house. The masonry partition walls are also underway in the new basement. And that brings us back to the start of the tour. An incredible amount of work has been completed to get us to this point. Since this photo was taken, the services, the green pipes visible in the courtyard, have been covered with an engineered pad designed to support the crane that will be used in the next phase of construction. In short, the project is up and out of the mud and ready for vertical construction. In this illustration, we see that KESKUS is a hybrid building that is half concrete and half steel. The green line demarks the transition between the two materials. To date, we have completed the construction below the line, but about 6 months ago, our focus shifted to the work above the green line. Next, we will build this. This drawing is from the steel shop drawings and illustrates the entire steel superstructure that will form the backbone of the building. It will be floating on rubber isolation pads to minimize any effects from the trains below. The structure is made up of over 1,000 steel members that are all individually detailed in the fabrication drawings. Because of the complexity of the jumbo glass exterior, there is almost no tolerance for dimensional disparities. Quality control is imperative for the success of the glass, and so the manufacturing drawings have gone through a very rigorous approval process involving the architect, engineers, and contractors. The triple checking process has taken much longer than anticipated and is just being completed. Because the steel is on the critical path of the project schedule, this process has caused some delay in the project. The good news is that now the steel fabricator can finish the connection details such that the manufacturing of the steel components can begin. The steel will be completed and shipped to site in 5 phases. The erection of the completed steel is expected to begin on site early in the new year and take about 15 weeks to complete. So it will be steel that we will be mostly working on until our next community update. The sequence of construction through to completion starts with the erection of the steel. Then the metal deck and concrete floors are installed all the way to the roof. Then roofing, siding, and temporary enclosures will be installed to bring the building to watertight so that the interior finishes can begin. When the roofing membrane is complete, the roof will be loaded with the materials that make up the green roof component. This loading is done intentionally to bring about anticipated deflection in the steel superstructure. This deflection can then be adjusted using the post-tensioning cables in the grade beams we discussed earlier to bring it within tolerances required by the jumbo glass. At that point, the last major work stream will be to install the jumbo glass and complete the associated finishes inside. The administrative task of obtaining occupancy is anticipated to be complete by year-end 2025. Before the steel arrives, focus will be on completing the exterior restoration of the Heritage House, completing phase 2 of the subway waterproofing work, and completing the retendering of finishing trades. Considerable retendering has been undertaken to try and take advantage of the moderate softening of the market. Labor rates remain high, but material prices are correcting somewhat. I hope the update was informative and somewhat interesting. I have run long on time, so without further ado, I will pass the microphone back to Tina. Thank you.
Aitäh, David. So in our last update a year ago, we had expected that we would be moving into KESKUS and ready for the activity year starting in September 2025. However, due to the construction delays mentioned by David, a more realistic expectation is that we will be able to move in towards the end of 2025. So please do plan to continue your activities in your temporary locations for September through December of 2025. That being said, we are eagerly anticipating the day when the Estonian activities can all happen together again under one roof, and we are even in preliminary stages of discussing our grand opening celebrations. As construction continues and deadlines become more firm, we will host meetings and community engagement sessions more frequently. As always, please continue to read the KESKUS newsletters for your most up-to-date information. And now I will turn it over to Liisa Käärid, who is board chair of Estonian Arts Center, the charity associated with KESKUS. Liisa?
Aitäh. Thank you, Tina. I'm here to provide a brief update on the status of our capital campaign. And I'm very happy to share that as of today, the funds donated by the supporters of KESKUS from around the world totals approximately $20.7 million. While the largest portion has come from donors in the Toronto area, approximately 1/4 has been donated by supporters living in the US. And the remainder has come from rest of world, including New Zealand and Australia, throughout Europe, and including Estonia. This year, it's been heartening to see how many existing donors have topped up their original pledges. Knowing that costs continue to impact the KESKUS project, existing donors have added to their paid pledges and made further gifts of over $625,000 since the beginning of this year. Of course, we still have work to do to bring KESKUS over the finish line. So I appeal to all of you to consider donating or to increasing your donations to help make this extraordinary KESKUS of ours a reality. Every dollar counts, and we are so close. In short, we need another $3 million to get KESKUS open and functional. This will get the building to an operational level to get the tenants in, to serve our community needs, and to function as an event space. Please help. And next, I'm going to turn it over to Ellen Walter, project lead, to speak to an upcoming initiative that also combines culture with fundraising. Ellen.
Suur tänu, Liisa. Mul tõesti on hea meel esitada ühte erilist võimalust. This is an opportunity for every one of us to engrave our family history onto a piece of real estate in the heart of North America's fourth largest city, and to explain how it is that the Estonian diaspora, small but mighty, stretches around the globe. But I think it's best if we can play the video. The pathway to freedom is in the final planning stages and will shortly roll out once the materials are confirmed. So do please sign up for the KESKUS newsletter to learn more. And now back to you, Liisa.
Thank you, Ellen. A few final notes on our capital campaign and donating. Firstly, we've had a few queries from those Kalevi Laua donors who've selected a seating area or a classroom as their named area and are asking about the exact location. The order for allocation will be chronological, following the order in which the donations have been made. The process for checking in with donors and making those allocations will start in Q3 of 2025. Next slide, please. Secondly, I'd like to share a few reminders about the many options available for donations, including legacy donations. You may not need a will or a revision to your will to make an estate gift to Estonians Arts Centre. It can be as easy as asking your investment advisor for a multiple beneficiary designation form for your RRSP or RIF. You can see an example on the screen, allocating a percentage. You can see an example on the screen, and then on this form, you can allocate a percentage and then simply return that form. Your professional advisor can explain how those donations can result in the proceeds being paid directly to the charity and not being subject to probate. Of course, donations of a publicly traded security are still one of the optimal methods of donating because there is no tax payable on the capital gains, and you'll get a charitable tax receipt for the full market value of the shares donated. To get a 2024 tax receipt for securities donated, please make arrangements by no later than December 22nd. We say that to take into account logistics and possible year-end delays in transfers between institutions. In closing, there are many options, including even cryptocurrency, if you'd like. In that event, please contact us at donations@estoniancentre.ca to ask Taimi Hooper, our able donations administrator. Whatever method you choose and whatever amount you can afford, südamest tänu. You are making a difference, and we are thankful for your support. Aitäh. Oh, actually, I should mention that I'm going to turn this over to Heili Toome if the next slide is up. Thank you.
Aitäh, Liisa, and tere õhtust. International Estonian Centre Inc. is the trustee that is currently building and will operate KESKUS International Estonian Center. Northern Birch Credit Union as the anchor tenant was previously announced. The KESKUS operational plan continues to evolve and discussions are ongoing, such that at this time there's no specific updates to share with respect to tenants' primary caterer. Stepping back from the building a second, though, IECI recognizes that the KESKUS building is also a political symbol, representing not just our heritage, but also the country of Estonia itself. For this reason, IECI has become a member of the non-for-profit political representation organization in Canada, Eestlaste Kesknõukogu Kanadas, or Eesti Central Council in Canada, to support the representation of the Estonian voice in various levels of government. EKN has reorganized and is now made up of members that are organizations with similarly aligned objectives. As the building starts to rise above ground, we'll look to Tiina Paluoja and Pia Poolsaar to support the community transition into the new center. For that, we'll look to provide access to the construction site. So, in order for us to get some guidance on planning, we'd like to engage the group in a poll. Basically, the question is going to be, would you or your organization be interested in attending on site to get acquainted with how any of the following are coming along? One would be storage areas. A second would be community room, business center, jumbo glass install, structural seal, a number of items. So if you do want to take a moment now and put some answers into the poll, feel free. You can either respond here, or if you'd like to elaborate your thoughts, feel free to email us, which is uuskodu@estoniancenter.ca. We'll look to increase the frequency of communications, so expect that the community engagement session will take place by the end of Q1 2025. And so, Veiko, if you would help to put the second poll up, we would like to poll the group if whether they would prefer it virtual or in-person format. And this will help us to inform how to plan the future engagement sessions moving into 2025 as we get closer to more logistical plans with regards to the KESKUS. If you'd like to put your preference in this poll, it will help us to plan for the future. So it looks like we are 76% Zoom virtual, but there are some that do value in person. So thank you for this feedback. We will take this into consideration, obviously, when we start to plan 2025. That being said, I believe this concludes our presentation format and that we're going to move into Q&A. So I will pass it back off to Tiina.
Aitäh, Hailey. So at this point, yes, we finished our official presentation portion of the evening. So if you currently have any questions, queries, concerns, anything you would like us to address tonight, then please, at the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A section. It looks like a speech bubble. You could type in some questions that you have there. And when we have some in our chat, then we will start answering them to the best of our ability. The first question is for David, and it is, what is the design to mitigate subway noise? David?
That's a very interesting question. We've spent a lot of time on that issue, actually, because we are very sensitive to the location of the subways opposite the building. There's really two kind of plans of attack as far as noise mitigation goes. There's below grade attenuation, and then there's above grade attenuation. And so the below grade attenuation is basically made up of a foam mat that lines absolutely all of the exterior walls of the new construction, and then across the courtyard area, and then down the other side of the walls towards Tartu. And what that is to do is to create an isolation between the dirt between the subway and the new building. You have to insert a barrier that unlinks the two. And so it's done with a foam that very much looks like an old camp mattress, from Seduro days. And that's what lines the basement walls. So that protects the concrete from the trains. Once we get onto the transfer slab, every column on the steel structure is actually floating on rubber hockey pucks. They're huge pucks, but what that does is if there's a breach in the vibration past those rubber pads I was just talking about earlier, the foam pads earlier, then it won't make the jump between the concrete and the steel, because the steel is also isolated from the concrete. And then we have a third level of protection, and those are the tuned mass dampers. So we have a mass damper in the buildings that counteracts any sort of vibration. That's not only for the TTC stuff, but it's also because we have large spans in the building, and activities like Rafadans could actually excite the building and create noise. So those are like sound killing speakers. They counteract any sort of vibration that gets into the structure. So that's really how we've looked after it. I'm not a sound engineer, but I can assure you there's been a few hired on the project to solve it.
Excellent. Aitäh, David. The next question is for Ellen. And this is in relation to the video that we saw earlier in our presentation. And that is, what is the estimated cost for the paver stones? Ellen?
The estimated cost of the paver stones is going to depend on the source of the paver stones. So we're really trying to see, as Alar noted, whether we can actually get a section of that stone from Eesti. And what we're truly hoping that the cost will work out so that we can, and the material suitability, that we could offer them at, and you might expect this number already, that number would be 1944, so 1944 to mark the year of the mass flight from Eesti. And then engraving would be on top of that. That's estimated at another couple of hundred. It may depend on a minimum number of characters, or we may just make it into a sum. So this is, we're getting really close to figuring that part out, and I hope that that's for right now, and then the rest will be via the newsletter. So I really do encourage everyone to sign up on estoniancenter.ca/newsletter, or just even on the homepage, so that you don't miss out.
Aitäh, Helen. I know I'm really looking forward to seeing that Estonian Walk of Fame in front of our new building. David, we're back to you for the next question. And this is in relation to weather, and whether or not the weather this fall assisted us in our construction progress.
It did very much so. In the last portion of the summer and fall here, we did a lot of concrete pouring, and pouring is susceptible. The concrete is susceptible to damage if there's rain during a pour. So you generally try to avoid rain days when you're pouring. Well, we hardly had any. So we never had to delay a pour because of weather. So it was really quite good. And of course, any sort of adverse weather will slow the people down on site as well. It makes doing tasks more difficult. So the warm weather, it was really quite a bonus.
Excellent. Thank you, David. And now on to a slightly more challenging question, of course, numbers. So there's a question about reviewing cost forecast to completion. Do you have any comments on that at this time?
Well, we don't really have a change in the overall budget at this point, Peter. The number remains at 49.7 million to completion. And though, as I said in my presentation, we are doing some retendering or a lot of retendering and finishing it up in the month of November, and that will hopefully have positive impact on the budget. I don't think it's going to be earth-shattering, but it will affect the budget to some degree. And so we will be turning our eyes to finalizing the exact numbers very shortly. Right now, there's no update.
Aitäh. And I'll give the next one to Ellen, since David just answered one. So this question is about the large windows, and I know we've answered this before, but it is always a big curiosity, and just how do we control sunlight and heat through those beautiful large windows?
We are fortunate that directly west is Paul Martel Park, and from there, the subway station. So the KESKUS site gets excellent light from the west. And so the question is very appropriate because it'll be sunlight on the rooftop, sunlight in the courtyard, and obviously coming in through into the building, into those large buildings. So those are triple glazed sheets of glass. The jumbo glass, there are 47 pieces of jumbo glass, just a little bit of on the glass. And the heaviest of those weighs 2 tons, so almost 4,000 pounds. So these are large pieces of glass, but they will have some thermal transfer, of course. So what that means is not only an excellent HVAC system that's very current and very modern and up to the task, but there will also be a curtain system. Now, if you've been following along, you'll know that we are really, really hoping that we can figure out a way to finance a public art project that would also function as a curtain. And if you recall, the artists that came from Estonia to prove out the concept, together with Alar Kongats, 2 textile artists from Estonia, to create a weave that would have keep in mind, we don't necessarily need blackout conditions because the partitions for the grand hall will provide blackout conditions for the areas back there. So what we're hoping to have is this artwork curtain. So it's 6.5 meters. If you can see my faux background here, it's 6.5 meters from the second across the mezzanine and up to the very top. That's 6.5 meters, and it runs 100 meters from one end all the way around the perimeter of the courtyard and through to the other side. And to have that whole expanse translating the information from a weather buoy that is on the Baltic Sea that measures wave height and wind velocity, transfers that into code, which then transfers into light. And the fiber optic cable in this curtain will then light up in real time as the waves of the Baltic Sea undulate. So it does 3 things if we're successful in getting the funding, because technically I think we've proved it out, but we really have to get the building built, and this curtain is a nice to have. So we either go with a very traditional curtain, or we really are aspirational and try to get this artistic curtain done, because this artistic curtain will do 3 things. First, it will remind all of us of how it is that we got here through that stormy September Baltic Sea. Number 2, it keeps all of Toronto, all of this area, or anyone who comes to the area connected from a climactic perspective of what is happening half a world away, and just keeps us attuned to the effects that we all have. And number 3 is just because it's top 10 things to do in Toronto. And number 3 is go to Estonia Square and check out the Baltic Sea. It's just a really cool thing. So that's what we're really hoping to do. It's a long answer for a simple question of how to keep it cool in the summers. I'm quite confident that our mechanical and electrical consultants have it nailed. And David, if you want to add anything on to that, please do.
Just one note is that the most of the glass in the building is triple pane, and that is because of the size of it. But that also leads to a very good insulating value on a glass basis. So we happen to have just the glass itself is quite good at insulating heat transfer or heat gain, heat loss or heat gain because of the thickness of the glass.
Okay. I'm sure it will be very exciting to see when everything comes together and we get to see it installed. We have no further questions. However, we do have one very kind comment from Unstoy. Thank you very much. He has written, "Thank you for an excellent presentation. So on behalf of everybody on the panel, thank you for that lovely comment and support. And I will use that as my segue into the closing remarks for tonight. So thank you everyone who did send in questions. If you do have further questions or more questions come up later, please do reach out at uuskodu@estoniancenter.ca. The email address was sent to you in the chat earlier. Both Bia Bolsar and myself do monitor that email address regularly. Again, thank you so much for your continued support of the KESKUS project. We look forward to the time when we can all participate in our activities together, finally under one roof again. In the meanwhile, we look forward to seeing you at the Raffajoulupu on Saturday, December the 14th. Come visit our table to chat more about KESKUS, inquire about paver projects, to ask about Estonian Arts Center charitable programming, or to even purchase some super flashy KESKUS swag. As always, don't forget to sign up for the KESKUS newsletter and to keep track online and on social media about all our wonderful projects in progress. And this will conclude the community engagement session number 20. Good evening.